If you are still wiping away tears of emotion over those public relations press releases dripping with national pride, let me be the first to suggest you schedule an eye examination. In this cannibalistic business jungle, the so-called culture of struggle is nothing more than the century's greatest lie, invented by an emotionally crippled old man to cover up his complete inability to handle intimate human relationships. Ren Zhengfei smiles like a saint on magazine covers. His face is plastered across every business publication in China. He is celebrated as a visionary, a patriot, a man who built a telecommunications empire with nothing but grit and determination. But peel back the Huawei skin, and what is left underneath? A hollow shell. A lonely soul who does not even know what his own daughter likes to eat. A man who has spent decades running away from the one thing he could never conquer: his own home. Today, AutoArchives is not telling a success story. We are telling the story of how an ambitious man systematically murdered his own family and packaged that murder as great sacrifice. Buckle up. The truth has never sounded good. Let me ask you a question that no business school professor will ever put on an exam. Why does Ren Zhengfei promote the 996 culture? Why does he want his employees working from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, 6 days a week? Why does he glorify exhaustion and celebrate burnout and call it loyalty? The official answer is always the same: competition, survival, the need to beat the Americans and the Europeans and the Japanese, the need to build a world-class company, the need to secure China's technological future. All of that is public relations. All of that is narrative. The real answer is much darker and much simpler. For a man who does not know how to face his wife and children, the office is the safest place on earth. It is a fortress. It is a sanctuary. It is a place where he is worshipped instead of questioned, where he is celebrated instead of ignored, where he is needed instead of tolerated. Ren Zhengfei worked until 11 o'clock every night for decades. He was famous for it. Employees whispered about it. Biographers celebrated it. The media called it dedication. Let me call it what it actually is: a pathological, obsessive, self-destructive emotional escape. He would rather fly across the world to drink cheap liquor with a Russian telecom operator than sit at a dining table and face the silence of a daughter who no longer knew how to talk to him. He would rather negotiate contracts with corrupt officials in Southeast Asia than watch his wife's eyes go cold across a dinner plate. He would rather build a global empire than build a single functioning relationship inside his own home. This is not hard work. This is not dedication. This is not sacrifice for a greater cause. This is running away. This is a man who discovered that business problems are solvable and human problems are not. So he simply stopped trying to solve the human ones. He poured everything into the company because the company gave him feedback. The company gave him results. The company gave him praise. His family gave him silence. His family gave him distance. His family gave him the cold, uncomfortable mirror that reflected back the man he had become. So he stopped looking at that mirror. He buried himself in spreadsheets and strategy meetings and product launches and shareholder presentations. He called it survival. But the truth is much simpler. He just could not go home. He was afraid of the quiet. If you have ever had a boss who demanded endless overtime, who treated the office like a cult compound, who needed you to be there at all hours because his own living room was empty and cold, you already understand this dynamic. The workplace becomes a replacement for the family that the boss destroyed with his own ambition. He does not need you to work late because the company requires it. He needs you to work late because he cannot stand being alone. And misery loves company. If you also think that those bosses who scream about dedication and loyalty are just lonely men hiding from their own empty homes, type the word pathetic in the comments. Let us count how many empire builders are out there, clocking overtime to escape the silence of their own dining tables. Let us rewind to September 25th, 2021, the day Meng Wanzhou returned to China after being detained in Canada for nearly 3 years. The whole country erupted. Social media exploded. Tears flowed in every province. The narrative was perfect. A father's long wait was over. A daughter was finally home. Family reunited against all odds. The nation wept with joy. It was beautiful. It was moving. It was a complete and total fabrication. AutoArchives does not see a family reunion. We see a power transfer. We see a carefully choreographed piece of political theater designed to accomplish two things. First, to cement Meng Wanzhou's position as the heir apparent to the Huawei throne. Second, to distract from the deeply uncomfortable questions that no one was asking. Why was Meng Wanzhou on that plane to begin with? Why was the daughter of the founder of the world's most controversial telecommunications company sent to one of the most politically sensitive international assignments available? Why was she the one standing on the front lines, holding the bag, while her father sat safe and sound in his Shenzhen compound? Watch the speech Meng Wanzhou gave when she landed. Read the words carefully. She thanked the Communist Party. She thanked the Chinese government. She thanked the lawyers. She thanked the diplomats. She thanked the people of China. She thanked the employees of Huawei. The aunts and uncles, she called them. The workers who had supported her during her long ordeal. She thanked everyone. Everyone except her father. Not a word. Not a mention. Not a glance. This was not an oversight. This was not stage fright. This was the most elegant, restrained, devastating act of public rejection ever broadcast on Chinese state television. She thanked the entire nation. She did not thank the man who put her there. That silence was louder than any scream. Let me be clear about what I am suggesting. I am not saying Ren Zhengfei wanted his daughter to be detained. No father wants that. I am saying that in the mind of a man who has spent his entire life treating people as pieces on a chessboard, his daughter was just another piece. A valuable piece. A piece worth protecting, but still a piece. He sent her to Canada. He sent her to the front lines of the geopolitical war between China and the West. He put her in harm's way because she was useful there. And when she came back, when the cameras were rolling, when the whole world was watching, she made sure that everyone knew exactly how she felt about being used. She said nothing, and nothing said everything. The ambition that builds empires also burns bridges. It also destroys trust. It also turns daughters into strangers who do not mention their fathers in their homecoming speeches. Ren Zhengfei says he feels guilty. He says he regrets not spending more time with his children. If that guilt were real, if that regret were genuine, why did he send his daughter into the most dangerous international political firestorm of her life? Why was she the one who had to suffer? Why was she the one who had to spend 3 years under house arrest in a foreign country? Because she was useful. Because the chessboard demanded it. Because the empire comes first. Always. And that is not love. That is not family. That is not sacrifice. That is exploitation dressed up in patriotic clothing. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, you might want to do it now. Because the mainstream media will never show you the cold, hard bill behind the warm, fuzzy family reunion. Hero. Now we arrive at the most psychologically fascinating part of this story. How does a man who drove away his wife, alienated his children, and spent decades hiding in an office convince himself that he is not a failure? How does he look in the mirror and see a hero instead of a ghost? How does he sleep at night when his own daughter will not mention his name on national television? The answer is elegant. The answer is terrifying. The answer is the most sophisticated psychological defense mechanism ever developed by a corporate executive. Ren Zhengfei took his personal failures and rebranded them as national sacrifices. He took his loneliness and called it dedication. He took his inability to love and called it discipline. The narrative machine is simple. It has 3 gears. First, identify a larger cause. The nation, the company, the future of technology. Something so big that it swallows everything else. Second, frame every personal failing as necessary for that larger cause. I did not neglect my children. I was securing their future. I did not abandon my wife. I was building a company that would make her proud. I did not run away from my family. I was running towards the destiny of my people. Third, repeat this narrative until you believe it. Until everyone believes it. Until the lie becomes so familiar that it feels like truth. This is not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy requires an awareness that you are lying. What Ren Zhengfei has achieved is far more sophisticated. He has brainwashed himself. He genuinely believes that his loneliness is noble. He genuinely believes that his emotional crippling is strength. He genuinely believes that destroying his family was the price of saving his country. This is the most dangerous kind of self-deception, because it is sincere. And because it is sincere, it is contagious. Millions of employees, millions of citizens, millions of young people have caught this same delusion. They look at Ren Zhengfei and see a hero. They do not see a lonely old man eating dinner by himself while the empire he built hums in the background, indifferent to his presence. The people who tell you that you must sacrifice the present for the future are almost always people who have already ruined their present. They have already lost their marriages. They have already lost their children. They have already lost the ability to enjoy a quiet evening without checking their phones every 3 minutes. And instead of admitting failure, instead of acknowledging that they made a terrible mistake, they elevate that mistake into a philosophy. They turn their misery into a religion. They recruit disciples. They build cults. This is not leadership. This is trauma masquerading as vision. This is a wounded animal trying to convince itself that the wound is actually a medal of honor. This false nobility is the highest grade anesthetic ever invented. It not only numbs the pain of the person taking it, it convinces everyone around them that the numbness is actually enlightenment. The employee who works 80 hours a week tells himself he is building a career. The entrepreneur who ignores his crying children tells himself he is building a legacy. The executive who has not had a real conversation with his spouse in a decade tells himself he is building an empire. And at the top of this pyramid of denial sits Ren Zhengfei, smiling from his magazine cover, a tragic hero in a tragedy that he wrote himself. Chapter 4. The Ultimate Lesson. Success is a ticket reserved for monsters. Here is the cruelest truth that this story teaches us. The kind of success that Ren Zhengfei achieved is not available to normal, healthy, emotionally functional human beings. To reach that peak, to build that empire, to accumulate that much power and wealth and influence, you must first amputate every part of yourself that makes you human. You must cut off your ability to love. You must remove your capacity for intimacy. You must carve out the space in your soul that wants to sit quietly with your children and watch a movie without checking your email. You must become a monster. Look at the pattern. The greatest business builders in history are almost uniformly terrible parents, terrible spouses, terrible friends. They are brilliant at scale, but broken at close range. They can manage 10,000 employees, but cannot manage a single conversation with their own daughter. They can negotiate billion-dollar deals, but cannot negotiate the terms of a family dinner. They have optimized every part of their lives except the parts that actually matter, and we celebrate them for it. We put them on magazine covers. We teach their biographies in business schools. We tell our children that if they work hard enough, if they sacrifice enough, if they dedicate themselves completely to the pursuit of success, they too can end up rich, powerful, famous, and utterly alone. Ren Zhengfei has conquered the world. Huawei is everywhere. Its equipment powers networks on every continent. Its phones are in billions of pockets. Its name is known in every country on earth. But when Ren Zhengfei dies, who will hold his hand? Who will sit by his bedside? Who will remember the man behind the myth? Not the company. Companies do not mourn. They have succession plans. Not the employees. Employees have new bosses. Not the nation. Nations have new heroes. The person who would have held his hand, the person who would have remembered the man instead of the myth, that person was pushed away 30 years ago. That person is a stranger now. That person does not mention his name on national television. This is not a success story. This is a tragedy. This is the story of a man who traded everything that made him human for the keys to a kingdom that will not even remember his face 50 years from now. The empire he built is permanent, but so is the emptiness he created. And the emptiness does not care about quarterly earnings. The emptiness does not care about market share. The emptiness does not care about technological breakthroughs. The emptiness just sits there, in the cold living room, in the silent dining room, in the bedroom where no one sleeps anymore, waiting to be acknowledged. And it will be waiting forever. Because Ren Zhengfei is very good at building things. But he has never learned how to sit with emptiness. That is why he works until 11 o'clock every night. The story of Ren Zhengfei is not an inspirational tale. It is not a lesson in perseverance. It is not a blueprint for success. It is a tragedy of human evolution under capitalism. It proves that under the cold, grinding logic of capital, people are just tools. They are means to an end. They are resources to be optimized. And this logic applies even when the person being used is your own daughter, even when the tool is your own soul. Ren Zhengfei did not defeat the system. He became the system. He turned himself into a machine that could produce value but could no longer produce love. And he wants you to admire him for it. Do not applaud the sacrifice. Do not celebrate the suffering. Do not glorify the loneliness. When you cheer for the empire builders who tell you that family must be sacrificed for greatness, you are not supporting them. You are building the prison walls that will eventually trap you. You are validating the logic that will eventually be used against you. Your boss will tell you that the company needs you more than your children do. Your government will tell you that the nation needs you more than your spouse does. Your culture will tell you that success matters more than happiness. And you will believe them, because you have been trained to admire the monster instead of pitying him. Let me be clear about what I am saying. Do not believe anyone who tells you that the greater cause requires the sacrifice of your family. The greater cause is almost always just the personal ambition of a few powerful people dressed up in noble language. The sacrifice is almost always demanded of everyone except the people making the demand. Ren Zhengfei did not sacrifice his family for China. He sacrificed his family because he did not know how to love them. And then he built a narrative that turned his failure into a virtue. Do not make the same mistake. The world does not need more business empires. The world does not need more billionaires. The world does not need more men who cannot name their children's favorite foods, but can recite quarterly earnings reports from memory. The world needs more fathers who come home for dinner, more mothers who read bedtime stories, more people who understand that the greatest achievement in life is not building something that lasts forever, but loving someone who will hold your hand when forever ends. Ren Zhengfei built a monument. He also built a tomb. The monument is in every Huawei device. The tomb is in his empty living room. The world will remember the monument, but the emptiness will remember the man. And emptiness is patient. Emptiness can wait. This is AutoArchives. We rip off the masks. We show you the bleeding truth. If this story made your blood run cold, good. That cold feeling means you have not been fully assimilated by the machine yet. Hold on to that chill. It might be the only thing that keeps you human in a world going mad. Leave a comment. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe before they decide you are a threat too.